Click, boom. What's going on, faithfuls? It's your boy Mike from the Nothing But Niners crew. And hopefully, keeping my fingers crossed, this all works out. I'm trying to get a very special guest on here, Dr. David Chao. He is on Twitter, known as the Pro Football Doc. That is his Twitter handle. So, guys, before we get down to the nitty gritty, I want to take some time and thank you all for checking us out here on the YouTube channel. We are ready to rock and roll. Guys, make sure you hit up the website. It's www.nothingbutniners.com. There you're going to see a bunch of great articles written by a bunch of great people. You're also going to be led to our social media pages. The Twitter page is Nothing But 9ERS. That is the same as the Snapchat, Nothing But 9, the number 9, ERS. We have Facebook and we have Instagram. Those are Nothing But Niners. So I want you guys to check that out as well. I am 49ers Mike _NF. And again, our special guest that's going to be popping in a little bit later is going to be Dr. David Chao. All right. Former team doctor of the San Diego Chargers, formerly the San Diego Chargers. I didn't mess that up. He was with them for 17 years. And now he does a lot of corresponding and he does a lot of talking and consulting with other teams and with other players. And if you guys are familiar with the Sirius XM, he also works with NFL Network there. He does some things for the LA Times. I can't wait to get him on. The 49ers have been drafting some guys with injuries over the last couple of years. We picked up some free agents. You guys know about D Ford's back injury. We also have Trent Taylor with the back injury. We have a lot of guys who suffer from soft tissue injuries, things like that. And I'm going to pick his mind about all this stuff. You know, we all sit around and we pretend that it's okay. You know, one of the biggest concerns and injury risk guys right now is probably Jason Verrett. Him and Jimmy Ward are going back and forth, but Jason Verrett has been significantly more injured and missed more time than Jimmy Ward. So it's going to be someone else that we ask him about. We all know about the Nick Bosa core injury and the sports hernia is what they used to call it. So we want to find out if these things are going to linger. You know, I'm going to pick his brain about all of that stuff. So I want to thank you guys for checking us out. I'm just setting the table here. All right. So when he pops in here, I'm going to get right to it. This is a professional doctor, and I do not want to take up a lot of his time. Okay. So this is going to be a lot of fun, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about this. If you guys aren't familiar with him, guys, go check him out on Twitter. It is Pro Football Doc, DOC. Make sure you get over there and you give him a follow, guys, because I promise you, you're not going to be disappointed. He also has his own podcast, so you guys can check that out under the same name, Pro Football Doc. And you can check out the podcast. He breaks down all the drafted players that were injured and things like that. I was listening to the latest one here, and I see that he's even going to have his wife on too. And I'm going to talk to him about that. It's a little risky, but I like it, man. I like it. You know, we got him.
Did it.
How are you?
It took a little bit. I'm doing fine.
All right. Hopefully you're not going to hit me for the for how long we've been trying to get this worked out. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I tried to warn you. I'm tech challenged.
Absolutely. So I appreciate your time. People are watching and they've been patiently waiting, and we are in no rush. So I do want to thank you for your time. Last time I talked to a doctor and I was sitting on the couch, I was getting charged about $400 an hour. So I do appreciate what you're doing here for me today. Now I want to give a little background about yourself. I told people you were a team doctor for the Chargers for 17 plus years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And were you with the staff when they played in the Super Bowl against the 49ers?
I was not. I came after that.
All right. Good. So, all right, I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I've told people.
But I like the subtle, humble brag.
No, it wasn't me. The fans wanted to know. It wasn't me. I do want to, again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I have told people to give you a follow at Pro Football Doc on Twitter. I told them about your podcast as well. I saw you posted something this morning that your wife is interested in joining you. Is that that's a blessing by itself?
Well, she wanted to do it, and I said sure, and then I kind of forgot about it. And yesterday, the day before, she says to me, "So when do I get to do it? You still want me to do it?" I said sure. I said, "When do you want to do it?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, how about in July? You know, because that's always a slower time." She goes, what, you want to bury me in July? I mean, you don't want anyone to see me? I was like, okay, we'll do it this week. I'm easy.
Well, good luck with it. At least she's showing interest. I tried to get my wife to join us, and she gives me the side eye. So you got to step up on me there.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think it'll probably be inappropriate for July not to bury her, but to do it around July 4th. There might be some fireworks. She she might express some things.
There you go. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, what's the name of your pod? I told him it was Pro Football Doc. Is there any other kind of tags or anything that they should?
Just a Pro Football Doc podcast. And what we do is we expound on the Twitter things and the Union Tribune articles. It's a more fun format, like podcasts are meant to be conversational. And we do some more deep dives, and quite proud that we do have some nice guests this week. Jenny Rentas and the draft information highway with the misinformation, and then the week before is Mike Silver, and week before that was, we have everyone from Teddy Bruschi to Adam Schefter to Ian Rappaport, etc. So we try and have some interesting guests on, and we try and talk a little bit about the medical angles and the injury angles of the NFL, since that's so much a part of it, and try to have some fun.
Absolutely, man. And that's why I really wanted to get you on. I first learned of your works. I've been a longtime subscriber of Sirius XM and the NFL channel that's over there. And I love Tim and Pat. That's one of my favorite shows on that channel. And I hear you on with them all the time. And I started following you from there. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and reach out and see what can happen. So, again, I can't thank you enough for taking your time out to join us today.
No problem. I love Jim and Pat. Those guys are awesome and fun, and but they're my favorite radio. I guess they're not radio, but audio interview to do, because they usually do deeper dives. It's not just when's he playing; it's how well, why, etc. They get deeper, and I always love it. I don't know if the audience loves it, but I'm used to it now. But Pat usually hits me with the open-ended, "What you got for me? What's on your mind?" So that's kind of fun.
Well, let's see if I can top them and try to get you to give us some good information here. I do want to start general, and then we're going to move into the specifics of the people that we drafted and the people that we brought in free agency really quick. My first question is, can you tell the audience that is watching right now what a soft tissue injury is, and is it something that's preventable? Is it something that's likely to reoccur and things like that? Because we hear a lot about that, and I can't tell you exactly what that is. So I'm very curious to get the answer on that.
Well, a soft tissue injury is anything except bone, I suppose. And it's so general. You're kind of asking me, tell everyone what a fender bender is and how to avoid it. Well, are you in the parking lot? Are you on the highway? Is it stop and go? Who made the lane change? There's so many different circumstances. But soft tissue is muscle, tendon, ligament, things other than bone. So it's pretty a wide variety.
Okay. All right. And then, so let's just say it was all right, is a hamstring injury considered soft tissue?
Yes.
Is it possible to prevent or reduce the likelihood of a hamstring injury happening or even reoccurring?
Yes, and you might be already prefacing or heading towards Deebo Samuel. Yes, it is possible to lessen the chance of recurrent hamstring injuries, with appropriate rehab and making sure scar tissue doesn't form, and appropriate rehab and, quite honestly, prevention. There are certain players that are wired in a way in terms of mobility and lack of flexibility that might be more prone to hamstring injury. Will you get rid of them all, 100% of the time? Maybe not, but I think you certainly can decrease that. In Deebo Samuel's case, I believe he had a bunch of hamstring issues in his freshman and sophomore year, and really hasn't had any in the last 2 years. Junior year had an ankle fracture and a foot fracture, different than the hamstring. And senior year was healthy. So the hope is the doctors and trainers at South Carolina, obviously he was their star guy. I'm sure they did him right, and they got him on a program, and hopefully he's coming into the 49ers fairly healthy.
Oh, absolutely, man. You knocked that out of the park. All right. So let me go backwards a little bit to our first round draft pick. Now, he didn't come in with any injuries, but this is going to be Nick Bosa. They call it a core muscle injury or sports hernia. What is the likelihood of that reoccurring? Is it something that the 49er fans have to be worried about? Did he inappropriately not go back to Ohio State to finish the year? Like, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, first of all, let me make it very clear because some of your audience is likely new to what I'm doing. I have not examined Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, or any of the players that I'm talking about in terms of the injury. If I had, then I wouldn't be able to talk about it because of HIPAA and federal privacy laws. So then your audience is saying, so why are we talking to this guy? What does he know? I mean, he hadn't even seen him. Well, here's what I always say to the audience. I'm dealing in insider knowledge, not insider information. Insider information can get you in trouble with the SEC if you're trying to, in the stock market finance world, but insider knowledge can make you some money. So what I try and trade in is, if you're getting audited, the NFL in terms of injury is a little bit like secretive, a little bit like the IRS. So I would say if you get audited by the IRS, do you want a good accountant or a good accountant who used to be an IRS agent? I'm kind of the former IRS agent. So I know how NFL teams work. I've been there. I've seen all of these injuries over time. I'm not specifically commenting, let's say, on Deebo Samuel, but I'm commenting on the fact pattern that I see from Deebo Samuel, and the same for Nick Bosa and everyone else to clarify. And I've said all along, and annually I do a top draft medical issues article for the San Diego Union Tribune. Nick Bosa, of course, is on it because he has a recent surgery where he didn't finish his college career. But I really have no worries about his core muscle injury. First of all, the recovery on that is short, and the timetable from when he had the surgery. You asked, should he have returned to Ohio State? Look, I didn't examine him. Sometimes often they'll say 6 weeks you can return. He was saying, and his dad was saying, because he's an elite pass rusher, he needed 12 weeks. But 12 weeks, I think, still put him close to the bowl game / college national championship mark. But you have to understand, and I say this in defense of Nick Bosa, not in criticism of Nick Bosa. I've never met Nick Bosa. I do know Joey Bosa a little bit, but everyone knows the family. They're a first-round draft pick family. They're not a collegiate, Heisman Trophy family. They're a first-round draft pick family. Can you blame the guy for focusing on his NFL career? And quite honestly, the 49er fans should be happy about it. And the other thing you forget is that when you're going through rehab and you're flying for surgeries and other things, there's that pesky thing called classes. And can you really take classes and and do the rehab and the training that you need to do and the surgical recovery that you need to do? So who can blame the kid for focusing on that? Do I think it was possible for him to return to play in the in a bowl game for Ohio State? Yes. Medically, it's possible. Do I think in his exact situation he could have or couldn't have? Well, he dropped out of school before you could really know because he was still in the midst of recovery. But I get why he did it. I'm not criticizing him. I mean, there's those, carrying a full course load and then dealing with that and dividing your attention. And look, he got what he wanted to do. He was a second pick in the draft. So congratulations to him. And no, he should not have any problems going forward. Because believe it or not, when you do the core muscle surgery, you actually do both sides, typically. And it's sort of preventative at the same time. So I expect no issues.
Okay, awesome. Now, if anybody has any questions after that, I can't help them. If that was a great answer.
Translation: I spoke too long. I filibustered.
No. That was very thorough, and like you said, in defense of him, that's a lot of things. A lot of people were a big knock amongst his fan base was that he's a quitter on the team and things like that. And like you said, they are a first-round prospect family. That's what they do.
If I were a 49er fan, I'd look at it. He's an early joiner rather than a quitter. I mean, he wanted to move on. I mean, if Do you blame someone to focus on graduate school and not worry about undergraduate if ultimately he wants to be a doctor or something? I mean, that's kind of what he did. He focused on graduate school. I wouldn't hate on him for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So in the third round, the 49ers selected a running back / wide receiver. Oh, he was a running back and then converted to wide receiver, Jalen Hurd. Now, he claims to be 100% now, but he's coming off of some concussions and a meniscus surgery. Is this something now? He didn't participate. He did not participate in the combine due to this surgery, but he claims that he's 100% now. Is this something that could, meniscus in general, is there something that could linger on into the season? What's the average recovery time and things like that? And what should 49er fans expect from a meniscus surgery recovery?
It depends on the type of meniscus surgery, the location, the extent, and if he has any associated articular cartilage damage. So there's a lot of unknowns there. But in general, the bad news is once you tear your meniscus, your knee is somewhat on an accelerated path towards some sort of degeneration. But the good news is it usually solves the problem, and in a football career window usually isn't a big deal. It's like you're more likely to need a knee replacement when you're 60 than otherwise, but long past your playing career. So in and of itself, a meniscus isn't that big a deal. But this is why the medical staff of the 49ers, the trainers and doctors, examine them. They look at the op report, that they look at the scope video. That's what I used to do. So it's an informed decision. And I actually, had a few minutes before it, I forget who it was. I tweeted someone or something related to the 49ers, and John Lynch said something. I'm paraphrasing, or you could read it back. You probably know what John Lynch said better than I did. And I love John Lynch as a player, a person, and I think he's doing a great job as a GM. He's not afraid of injured players. He thinks that means they play hard and tough. I would say there are certain injuries you want to be afraid of, and depending on where they're at in the recovery, and there are certain injuries that you really shouldn't be afraid of. So it depends on the injury and for the player, and it's called analysis. Now, I get it. Your fan base is probably a little gun shy, so to speak, because the organization had, past tense, a history of drafting rehab projects. Players with significant knee injuries, ACL injuries, and knee dislocation injuries. That's not a meniscus. So you can't say, what are they doing? Why are we drafting another kid with a knee problem? It's not the same thing. This knee problem is a fender bender. The other one was a lot more than that. And with the knee dislocation on the running back, and they were projects. I'm not criticizing, but I get it. The previous 49er administration seems to have taken some leaps on those, and several times it didn't work out. So, but that's a different organization, and these injuries are different.
Absolutely. And for the tweet that Dr. Chao was referencing was the one of Matt Mayoko, where John Lynch said they are just very physical football players. So the brand of football they play sometimes will lend to that. And your response was sometimes injured players are the safe selections. It is not the fact the player was injured. It is the analysis of the type of injury and the recovery. John Lynch gets it. So that was great. We had already retweeted that and liked that tweet. So if you guys didn't see it, make sure you view our timeline at Nothing But 9 ERS and give Dr. Chao a follow there. All right. So you started hinting around about the ACL tear. So let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and Jerick McKinnon. Now, both of these guys suffer these things, and these injuries have come a long way. I can only imagine how you've seen the progress of them. I used to hear, even when I was younger, about someone having this injury, and their career was as good as over. And now you have guys coming back, and they're playing the next year. I mean, how much has changed, and how likely are players to bounce back 100%? And I know everyone's different, but with the advancements in technology and the way that they're treating these things, just what are the limits or what are the possibilities now?
Well, you're not that old. I think historically, yeah. I mean, Joe Namath's career was in shambles because of an ACL, and it used to be called a trick knee. And nowadays it's pretty routine to recover, but it's not guaranteed. I would say I tell my patients it's a 95% chance to return to your same level of activity, not 100, but 95. It's certainly easier for someone who's playing at the NFL level to overcome an ACL than someone who tore his ACL in college and now wants to come into the NFL, because you're jumping a level. Not impossible, but it makes it a little bit harder. So Jimmy Garoppolo should be fine, and by all accounts, he's fine. And the good news is, as a quarterback, he's got plenty of lead time. In San Diego, Phillip Rivers tore his ACL in the AFC the game, the last game at the RCA Dome against the Colts, and returned to play in the AFC Championship game after a knee scope. Then had with a brace, had his ACL fixed. So this was now February, and 100 days later participated in minicamp and started 16 games and playoffs the next year. So Jimmy Garoppolo timeline, he's got months head start on that. So I'm not really worried about it, but here's the thing. If you look about Jimmy and the whole thing, if you look at quarterbacks getting injured, he needs to be careful and learn his lesson. In other words, he did it out of the pocket running down the sideline. If he steps out of bounds a yard or two earlier, the team still has a first down and he's still rolling. And if you look at the irony here, there's been lots of articles about quarterbacks, and about up to half the quarterbacks don't play 16 games. That's approximately the statistic. And if you look at the quarterbacks who have played 16 games consistently over the last few years, who is it? It's not Cam Newton, the athletic, I'm bigger than you guy, or the scrambling, hard to catch Russell Wilson. It's that have been injury free. It's been who? Phillip Rivers, immobile pocket quarterback. Eli Manning, immobile pocket quarterback. Drew Brees stays in the pocket. Tom Brady runs a tiny bit, looks a little bit of a hot mess when he runs, but he runs out of necessity on third down, not as part of the offense on first down. Now, if you look at all the guys who've been hurt, well, Jimmy on the run, Carson Wentz on the run, Marcus Mariota on the run, Deshaun Watson, admittedly in practice, but on the run. Aaron Rodgers, for the most part, when he has been extending plays. That's how Tony Romo's career came to an end, extending plays. So I think Jimmy's going to have to learn to pick your moments, and the rules are there to protect you in the pocket. And so the quarterbacks that stay in the pocket end up staying healthy. So that's something to learn from this. I think his ACL is probably going to be fine. I'm not particularly worried about it.
All right. 95% is what I locked in on there. And then, like you said, the guys that are moving around a lot, Russell Wilson likes to try to defy the odds. I can't remember that guy missing any games off the top of my head. I'm sure he's battled some injuries, but he's
he played banged up quite a bit though.
Oh yeah, I was going to say I know he's a fighter, man. I know he's taking some lumps and bumps and bruises, but he is a fighter, man. And I hate to give him props on a 49er show, but he is who he is. But let's transition to Russell Wilson's former teammate and Richard Sherman. The 49ers have him here. Now, Richard Sherman tried to tell everyone that he was, feeling really good and he was up to the challenge. We could see him progressively moving a little bit better as the year went on, as he's recovering from this Achilles injury. How have you, in your expertise and the observations you've made, how have you seen the Achilles injury recovery time? And I know obviously it's different for everyone. Richard Sherman is a reactionary player as opposed to someone who is going out there and dictating his movements. He has to react. So is there a difference for those kind of players who may be backpedaling and turning based off of someone else's actions as opposed to your body knowing what you're going to do when you do it?
No question. And the same is true for ACLs. But as Achilles and, as a defensive player and a multi-directional player, backpedal to change of directions, Richard Sherman has it hard. He has to react. And here's what I would say. There's no question 49ers fans can be a little disappointed in what Richard Sherman did last year. But I think if you look at it glass half full or look at it the right way, I think you should be excited about this year because last year he wasn't 100%. Now, he's of course going to say he was during the season. He's not going to let another team know he's not 100%. And he's an athlete and an elite one, and he has an ego. He's going to say he's 100%. But medically, I don't think he was. In this offseason procedure that Albert Breer referred to, I think was fairly minor. Was like removing some suture or something. So I would expect a good rebound year for Richard Sherman, and so hopefully that bodes well.
All right. We're going to wrap this thing up very soon here. I just have to ask you about another former Charger, and Jason Verrett. He's another corner that the 49er fans are really excited about, but he has got a list. I have 4 children in my house, and our grocery list is shorter than his injury list. What are your thoughts on him? And 49er fans are really excited because when he's healthy, he is A+. But the problem is that when he's healthy isn't too often. What are your thoughts on Jason Verrett?
Well, I'll give you lots of thoughts on Jason Verrett, but as a disclaimer, I'm going to avoid some of the specific injury things because I do have, anytime I have insider information or was involved in some way or know something, I try and stay away out of respect for the players. But he's a great player. He did reach a Pro Bowl with the Chargers, and he was known, and many people around the Chargers said he had the best feet of any player they've ever seen. So that's to the credit. The worry, of course, is he's now coming off an Achilles tear, Richard Sherman all over again, and he had multiple surgeries related to his ACL, and that's something that's been reported. And so it's after the multiple surgeries to the ACL that he tore his Achilles. So the question is, does he have all of his feet and legs back? And if he does, you're going to get a very good player.
All right, that gets me excited, man. I did not mean to put you in a compromising situation.
Oh no, not at all. I don't have any problem talking about any of them. I just was, wanting to clear things up. Not an issue.
Okay, and so I'm going to try to finish this up here with these guys. I don't want to ask about them individually, but Trent Taylor and D Ford had back injuries. Now D Ford's back injury wasn't last season. It was the season before that, and he played all 16 games. Trent Taylor's was the same time, and he didn't really play all 16, but he was active on the roster. What's the recovery for some of these back injuries? And I don't know the specifics of what they were exactly, but is this something that is going to be reoccurring? Because we did see Trent Taylor moving at a different pace. So what are your thoughts on that? And these are 2 guys that are moving in different directions. So maybe you can shed some insight on that.
Well, it depends on what the back issue is, right? Is it a disc? Is it a facet? Is it a muscular? I mean, it's hard to say and generalize, but in general, often a good rehab and core stabilization program can help with the low back. So hard to say, but something that you probably keep an eye on, but shouldn't necessarily mean that they're going to miss significant time.
Okay. All right. And speaking of significant time, I do not want to take up any more of yours. I truly want to thank you for taking your time out and joining. Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we go? I want to give you the floor to have any final remarks.
No, I thanks for having me on. I appreciate you, and obviously you run a good ship over there, so I'm glad we connected.
All right, Dr. Chao, man. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Guys, make sure you check out Dr. Chao again on Twitter, where you want to find him, Pro Football Doc, the podcast as well. Check him out. I can't wait to hear his episode with his wife there. I'm excited to see how that boils out. And you guys know who we are. We are Nothing But 9 ERS on Twitter and Snapchat. We have the Facebook page as well as the Instagram is Nothing But Niners. And the website, guys, www.nothingbutniners.com. You know how we do it over here, guys. Prepare for glory, anticipate pain, but always remain faithful. We're out of here.